A spirit body enveloped in numerous light dots floats in the chaotic void, watching the universe that has already disintegrated and confirmed to have died in battle. Looking at the spatial portal opened by the newly read spell information around me, my mood is extremely complex. It's like saying, I was killed by a group of saviors, and then saved by the exterminators outside the world. Drifting into the portal, awakened the young man who originated from reading, began to travel through countless realms, constantly accumulating information, knowledge, and embarked on an endless path of evolution. Current progress. Academy Silence Record, completed. Heroic Academy, completed. Fire Shadow and Wind Transmission, completed. Godslayer, completed. Fairy Tale, completed. / Crimson Eyes, completed. Bloodthirsty Assault, completed. Holy Grail 4, completed. Game Life 0, completed. Silver Fragments, Magic Knight, completed. Magic Forbidden, entered. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Preface, Sinkhole, a desperate journey through a desperate situation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time: December 31st, 2018. 23.55 Location: beach in a certain resort area. Character: you, protagonist, the young man with black hair and golden pupils, with an appearance of 80 points higher, leaned on a recliner on the beach, gazing at the starless night sky under the pollution of light, his expression very complex. The boy named Yu is 18 years old this year. He left the orphanage 3 years ago and traveled around the country and even the world under the guise of working. Teenagers are not ordinary people either. Although they have no social background, they realize from the moment they have memories that they possess abilities that most people do not possess. The ability to read corresponds to one's own name, and he refers to this ability as reading. At first, he could only read the information of the objects he touched and chose to actively memorize them. With continuous development, by the age of 10, it is now possible to perform range reading without contact. However, at the beginning, the range was only 1 meter, and it took 3 years to expand the ability range to 10,000 meters. Reading believes that one's own abilities should be similar to the origin in fate. After all, there is no such coincidence. Awakening abilities are not enough, and abilities still match one's own name. As one grows older, mentally, the information that the same object can read becomes more detailed. He also refines his soul through continuous memory of massive amounts of information and spiritual flushing. Over the past decade, the soul of the youth has become extremely powerful, almost reaching the point of detachment from the body without dissipating. At the same time, a strong soul also promotes the rapid development of abilities, a virtuous cycle, and accelerated returns. With this ability, he can only be described as a successful protagonist template in recent years. He originally thought that there was a complete mysterious system in the world he was in, but it took him 5 years to travel all over the country, and with several trips abroad, he only found dozens of scattered psychics. And, these people are clearly not organized, each thinking that the world revolves around them. The ones that barely formed the organization were still the Special Forces Special Abilities team. Of course, there is no cultivation system either. I thought it was because the cultivators were hiding too well or their own abilities were not strong enough to read, so I decided to temporarily give up searching and honestly read, learn skills, and polish my body. On the morning of December 31st, 2018, while practicing in my rented suite, my reading ability once again broke through the limit and was able to simultaneously read information about the entire solar system, and this was clearly not the limit. By reading the enormous amount of information, the spiritual impact brought by reading has allowed the soul of the reader to evolve again. He believes that at this time, this body, which is not much stronger than ordinary people, is no longer a necessity. When I first attempted to have my soul out of my body, I had a sudden urge to read and found that my ability to read is even stronger in the state of my soul. He felt that at this point, he had already reached the level of a certain Israeli boxing king in perception, and he even read information beyond the universe, world. At the same time, I also confirmed the world I am in, which is really a low-level world without much mystery as far as my planet is concerned. There is no cultivation system. The psychic, along with the psychic animals and plants, has just broken through 1,000 scattered pieces, without any accessory space, that is, there is no heaven, hell or underworld. The good news is that although the world level is not high, at least the interior of the world is a real vast starry sky. Unlike worlds dominated by a single planet or even a single continent, which have a certain range as the main body of the world, they are all false projections. The total number of intelligent civilizations in the universe is less than 100, but there are several civilizations that can be regarded as the hegemons of the universe, each occupying more than 1% of the universe. These civilizations are all homogeneous mechanical civilizations. After all, the world level is low and cannot form a cultivation system. Rune civilization, energy civilization, and biological civilization do not have the prerequisite for development. In the perception of the youth, these hegemonic civilizations are still at war with each other, and there is also an unlucky civilization that is about the same level as their own planet, annihilated in the aftermath of the interstellar war. The young man suddenly felt that as long as he was given a few hundred years, he could walk horizontally in this universe. Before he could be happy for 5 seconds, his face instantly collapsed because something happened outside the world. I sensed 2 indescribable creatures fighting, and the battlefield was getting closer and closer to my own world. After a period of time, the warring hegemonic civilizations in the universe seemed to realize something and began to withdraw. After a few minutes, several dominant civilizations sent troops towards the boundaries of the universe. The bad news came too suddenly. You guys, who can't even get out of the world, are going to provoke 2 big bosses who are bouncing around in the void in a good way. Where are you going? As expected, after the 2 big bosses approached the world, in the eyes of the young man, they were all ready to bypass the world result. Under the astonished expression, the several hegemonic civilizations constructed several cannons with different shapes, as if assembling a large device similar to a beam collector. That is a device similar to a Dyson sphere, with only one hemisphere and a much smaller volume than a conventional Dyson sphere, but still much larger than many stars. Several light cannons, even larger in size than our sun, fired at the collimator at the same time. The collimated light cannons, in confusion, actually pierced through the world wall. In his perspective, compared to the magnificent light cannon, the 2 void beasts were even smaller than ants, but he knew that they had really finished playing this time. As expected, the 2 big bosses in the battle were hit by the light cannon and nothing happened, and they seemed to be more energetic. After being hit, 2 void beasts stopped at the same time. One of them wriggled a few times under Yu's perception, and then the 2 monsters started fighting again, gradually moving away from Yu's world. Just as Yu breathed a sigh of relief and was about to withdraw his abilities, he was horrified to find that the world wall began to shatter and the situation became increasingly serious. Those hegemonic civilizations seemed to be doing something to remedy the situation, but with no eggs left, the fragmentation process of the world wall is getting faster and faster. It is estimated that this world will not be able to withstand today. At 20.30 on December 31, 2018, with a mixed mood, after finishing his final dinner, Yu arrived at the beach and specially bought a rental lounge chair. He placed it on the beach, lay down, and looked up at the sky. Looking at the group of people around who were laughing happily in ignorance, Yu expressed envy, jealousy, and hatred. She simply looked straight at the sky and continued to use her abilities. At this point, the world wall has completely shattered, and under the action of the raging energy tide in the void, the world begins to dissipate from the periphery, just like the paranormal storyline of the game Go, where the world is rapidly turning into dust. The invincible hegemon in the universe ultimately cannot escape the punishment of chaos in the void. Watching the last starship that obscures the sky disappear into the void, reading can only express a sigh of relief. Yeah, I have been tricked by you guys. I have just reached the peak of my life, so why don't you show me a face? The planet where labor and capital are located is not at the center of the universe, and even dissipating with the world is not enough time. 1,000 words can only converge into one sentence. Knock inside. Amidst the gaze of ordinary people looking at the mentally disabled, you continued to gaze at the sky and the dust, and within a few hours, it was his turn to look at himself, estimating that the entire solar system has turned into ashes, without even needing the silence of nirvana. Reading indicates that dying from ignorance is truly happiness. Returning to the present, at 23.55, it is estimated that there will be less than 5 minutes left for reading. It is said that before death, one will look back on their life. Reading, due to its ability, starts looking back after lying down. The real experience of reading is unknown, but in the eyes of the world, it is incredibly brilliant. After all, in an unremarkable low-level world, being able to create a presence similar to the moon magic King Solomon is simply more difficult than searching for a specific grain of sand from the Sahara Desert. At 23.59, with less than 30 seconds left until annihilation, global high-level alarms sounded everywhere, and the reading continued. Soon, the tide of the void passed by, the stars turned into ashes, and all spirits perished. Under the gaze of you, those who were asleep, watching their phones, rushing to work in front of their computers, lying on the sofa watching dramas, those who were eating, exercising, talking, crying, laughing, angry, wild, ferocious, and kind on the other side of the planet all dissipated in an instant. Time. December 31st, 2018 to 3.59.35 seconds, 36 seconds, 37 seconds. Location. In the void, on the edge of half the Milky Way galaxy. Character. Reading plus countless dots of light in the eyes of reading, rapidly dissipating. Hello everyone, my name is you. Because he is an orphan without parents, he doesn't have a surname, so it seems like he can only take it himself. It seems that names are mysterious, and a correct name can have an amplification effect on individuals. In my impression, the higher the realm, the greater the amplification. Judging from my abilities, my name should be correct, but I can't find my surname yet. It seems that I can only follow fate. At present, I am wandering in the void in the form of a soul. Fortunately, my soul is strong and it seems that I can resist for a few more seconds. Fortunately, my thinking speed has increased significantly in this state, so I still have time to experience water here. It seems that the souls of these creatures are basically finished, and they will do their best to harvest within 1 second. Okay, we can hold it for an extra 10 seconds now. In the process of brewing emotions. Bastard. How many interstellar civilizations are messing around? Accustomed to the prestige in the world, are you capable of dealing with big shots outside the world? What is the situation in our world? I haven't figured it out in my heart for so many years. Fortunately, those two big shots are so close that they can still read something now, otherwise they really have to be buried with this world. That's really enough. I was tricked by a group of foolish people who attempted to save the world, but I was saved by two masters who destroyed the world. Who would believe this? After venting, you had to honestly extract the information left by two indescribable objects. After all, his soul can only withstand for less than 20 seconds in the void now. With the acceleration of thinking, it's almost 10,000 times faster, and the sensory time is just over 2 days. I read a lot of things from the big shot and found that the vast majority of them were too high level for my soul to understand. What I saw was only a bunch of garbled code, which could only be stored and interpreted in the future. Even more, there is still a lot of information that the current soul cannot carry. With a sigh, seemingly impossible, even if you're jealous, it's useless, but thinking about the gap between yourself and them makes you feel relieved. As a result, I had to memorize the most basic ways of converting and utilizing void energy, as well as all the information that the soul in front of me could carry. Of course, it also includes all the information of those cosmic civilizations, and as for how much can be left after transmission, it doesn't matter that much. There are still 10 seconds left, and this energy has finally learned how to use it. Finally, It can heal a wave of health well and withstand for dozens of seconds more. I don't know how long it will take to learn this random world teleportation technique. 30 seconds later, you passed the spell and opened a black hole-style teleportation gate. Due to insufficient energy and being a beginner, she can only teleport to a lower world. However, you suddenly burst into tears. In her soul state, just pretend to be able to, she can live. Before the void truly began to erode your soul, the young man hurriedly stepped into the portal and was lost. Chapter 1. Nangong Reading, Space Design. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the pitch-black space of the universe, a dark opening unfolds and a semi-transparent human figure floats out. It's so close. I almost really finished playing. The reading of the soul state lifted its semi-transparent hand and wiped away the sweat that did not exist on the forehead. Although you successfully escaped from the Jedi in the end, before completing the teleportation, he was still breached by the energy in the void, which he roughly built using billions of spiritual bodies. His soul itself was eroded by whether it was the void or chaos. Fortunately, on the day of extinction, you had already completed the soul-level evolution and could barely withstand the erosion of tiny amounts of void energy. Currently, all he needs is to slowly refine this high-level energy from the void, but first he needs a body. Although the soul strength he is currently reading does not require a physical body to survive normally, he currently lacks soul strength and has not learned the method of cultivation. His spiritual strength is huge but he cannot use it yet, and the materialization of his soul is too complex. In short, reading without a body can only be seen dryly, even if viewed in great detail and distance, it can only be seen but not touched. And even creatures without spiritual vision cannot see reading. What a huge torment it is for reading at only 18 years old. There was no other way, so you had to follow the instructions of the cat and draw tiger, choose the destination, and use the final energy to teleport over. On the rooftop of the teaching building, a 17-year-old boy is looking up at the sky against the railing, with the earth, neon lights, Bedlord City, Fujimi Academy. Luck is really good in this tiny world where the Milky Way galaxy is shrouded in illusions. Being able to encounter one's own parallel is truly me. With good aptitude after refining the soul, its strength rises again. Although it's just a drop in the bucket now thinking about it, it's a pity there are so many residual souls, but there's no other way, for the sake of survival. Nangong Yu, that's right, Nangong Yu sighed. The reason for inheriting this surname is simply because after refining the soul of the predecessor, one's own soul is very compatible with this body. The original owner's name of this body was Nangong Yu. As mentioned earlier, it is the same body as you in this world. Chinese, previously studying abroad at Neon, in his second year of high school, was unlucky enough to be picked out by him as a container, and his soul was tempered. Speaking of which, this body is really good. It goes without saying how good it is. With just one puff, it's just better than an ordinary athlete. However, when it comes to the development of the brain alone, it is enough to utilize 1/10 of the soul, which is exceptional intelligence. The predecessor was also worthy of being the same person as the reader. Because of his exceptional intelligence and extremely fast learning speed, he just lazed around every day. Since the day of his downfall, Nangong Yu has been accustomed to looking at the sky and using his abilities to find fun whenever he is bored. Since the scope of his ability broke through the sky, Nangong Yu has named his ability 1000-mile eye without authorization. If it were to be upgraded, Qianlian EX. Nangong Yuliang thought to himself, at present, it seems that the difference between my 1000-mile eyes and Solomon in the moon world lies in my ability to read mysterious levels. It seems like there's more than just that. I can't see it in the future, and I can only see it in less than a week in the past, but is the range that others can see bigger than mine? Just pretend to have it, respect it. Is it difficult? Just learn from that half-nightmare and sneak around every day. Looking at the sky, Nangong Yu couldn't help but let his thoughts fly. At this point, he finally knew why the magician of a certain flower could stay at a certain gun for thousands of years. which was equivalent to having new episodes every day and watching live broadcasts every day. However, it's still not as good as a certain boxing king, who can occasionally search for old fans and brush them up. Speaking of which, I can't believe it's this world jokingly called the Novice Village. So next, hey, the resources in this world are not very useful to me. The remaining technological information in front of us has a huge technological gap, and we don't have time or resources to make up for it. It seems that we have to go on the mysterious side. That's right, most of the information that Nangong read and packaged, except for the key protected ones, was lost. Now, the most useful method is the energy extraction of those two masters. I think my luck is really good. Both masters were born in the chaos of the void outside the world, naturally adapted to the energy of chaos. This attribute can be said to be the source of almost all attributes. In other words, this kind of energy, without considering energy waste, can drive almost all spells. It can be said that among cultivators, Nangong Yu opened up several worlds from the beginning. In the past few days, with his transcendent spiritual power, he has preliminarily refined the energy to the current upper limit of this body, and has not yet compressed it. If an ordinary person can have 100 mana points, Nangong Yu now has 1000 mana points. At this stage, there is no need to worry too much about energy consumption. Skipping classes now is just a way to learn various techniques for recording and improve one's strength. It's better not to hide too much, just lock the door and select from the library of the soul. In the end, he chose the technique of spatial attributes that allowed him to survive. Firstly, there are techniques that do not require oneself to escape into space, and one's body may not be able to bear them. Among them, the first choice is the spatial shaping technique that he has long been interested in. This is still the spell used by the original culprit of the past life's destruction. Now, thinking about it, it turns out that that world was pierced away by a space spike that drove the raging energy in the void. At the same time, Nangong Yu became more and more convinced of her choice while feeling frightened. Because the upper limit of this technique can at least destroy a low-level world, the development limit is very high. In addition to enriching one's combat skills through spatial design, the second aspect is spatial mobility. Whether it is individuals who need to read notes, group teleportation, or instant movement, these displacement abilities are indispensable. Otherwise, when the blue runs out, this body will be ruined. How could it be more suitable for oneself than a body in the same position? Speaking of which, this body is quite important for Nangong Yu. Fortunately, specific records were found in my memory. Otherwise, Nangong Yu would have been able to develop his own random world teleportation based on it, which would have been a daunting task. Having decided on the direction of cultivation, Nangong Yu began to circulate the energy within her body according to the energy circulation method applicable to humanoid creatures in her memory. The saying goes that in less than 5 minutes, Nangong Yu felt as if her whole body was soaked in water, as the predecessors planted trees and the descendants enjoyed the cool breeze. The scene before me twisted as I moved my hands while performing the spell, just like a hot wind blowing in high temperature. To outsiders, the sight of Nangong reading a circle of 5 meters is distorted. Fortunately, Nangong Yuejing has extraordinary divine power and did not operate it together with the space under his feet, otherwise this roof would inevitably leak air. However, in this way of manipulating space, Nangong Yu's energy is also consumed rapidly. With just a few moves, it consumed nearly a quarter of the space. Although there are reasons why beginners are not proficient in their studies, he expressed that he cannot accept this consumption. The view standing on the shoulders of giants is really good. Nangong Yu indeed found a method in his memory to extract chaotic energy into various attribute energies separately. Refining it briefly and fluctuating the space again, this time only consumes 1/10 of the current energy limit, which is acceptable. Next, Nangong Yu tried to create a small piece of space, but he did not further compress the objects. The cost of casting such a spell can be almost ignored, and it filled up in just a few seconds after the creation. Feeling the invisible space in my hand, the shapes of knives, swords, spears, crossbows, balls, shields, and so on constantly change, making me feel very happy. After all, even in his past life, he could at best see far, see through, and even be a bit arrogant. Claiming to be an omniscient is not an exaggeration, but he has not truly experienced this kind of interference with reality. After trying out the contact style, Nangong began practicing the method of using spiritual power to create and control the objects in the recording. After a few minutes, she felt a long gun floating beside her, as well as 5 or 6-sided shields. Looking at the results, he believes that his mastery of spatial design is considered beginner's level. We need to craft a weapon. I don't want that wild female special police officer to have it at home. Moreover, it's not certain whether we will go or not at that time. Subsequently, Nangong transformed the space in his hand into the style of a regular tang sword, and then began to try to merge the surrounding space to continuously compress the shape, consuming a large amount of energy and spiritual power. Feeling the rapidly passing energy and the mental energy consumed by the turtle, Nangong said that the refinement of internal energy must be put on the agenda. Half an hour later, under the cycle of constantly refining and consuming energy, Nangong's body was about to lose its support. Before that, the Tang Dao in his hand was finally clearly visible to the naked eye, with the entire blade transparent like glass and a smooth blade surface. Nangong placed the blade on the steel pipe of the fence and slowly let go. As the transparent blade gradually penetrated the steel pipe, the boy expressed satisfaction and prepared to improve his knife skills in the future. As for the reason. Chapter 2. Action Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the crystal clear, divine weapon, in his hand, Nangong expressed the need to improve his swordsmanship, as well as the skills of using other weapons and body techniques. As for the reason, comparing the world skill levels of a certain month, Avalon Sword Saint, Uruk Axe King, and Israeli King of Fighters, these three are crown level or crown level substitutes, but looking at these titles, which one looks like a wizard? Thinking of the scene where he would harvest freely in the zombie swarm in the future, the young and energetic Nangong couldn't help but laugh. Then, according to his memory, he opened up a 2 cubic meter portable space and casually threw the Tang Dao into it. Looking at the time, school was almost over in the morning. I picked up the slightly damaged backpack in the corner, threw it into the storage space, and turned around to leave the rooftop. In the afternoon, the leisurely Nangong slowly climbed the stairs. Let's develop space styling techniques this afternoon. There's no problem with simple styling now, but the current level can only be overwhelming. I don't know the maximum distance for remote control, what is the range for remote attacks, and I haven't practiced flying with objects. Nangong's mouth was shattered, and he didn't worry about being listened to. Even if he was listened to, he would at most be regarded as a kid who hasn't graduated from the second year of middle school. He doesn't care about his reputation, or rather, he wasn't prepared to integrate into the world society from the beginning. This is a common problem among practitioners, as they all instinctively place themselves above ordinary people and consider themselves superior due to their mastery of mysteries that ordinary people do not possess. Even, they instinctively believe that ordinary people are not the same species as themselves. While Nangong was silently pondering, Nangong, you salted fish are skipping class again. Are you so bored in the classroom? Even if you don't listen to class, it's good to sleep. What can be on the rooftop? As the saying goes, there must be great things to be called out for. Sure enough, I saw a pink-haired twin ponytailed child-like giant peak glasses lady, with her hands crossed over her hips and a face full of anger, trying to stop the high-quality salted fish not far ahead of her. Nangong, who was planning the afternoon training content with his mouth broken, turned back helplessly and saw the newcomer clearly. He put on a happy smile. Oh, look what I've found. Isn't this our great genius, Miss Takagi? Who are you dedicating this standard hairstyle cute toy to? Wait, so much attention to me, is it difficult? You. Shut up. I won't argue with you. Your attendance will collapse this semester, you know. Hurry up and go back to class. Also, brain tonics or something stop me. Fenmao bared his teeth, with a look of, if you don't follow me, you'll have your teeth on, making him inexplicably think of a certain big stomach nun, waving to dispel the delusional bubbles that didn't exist on his head. Well, if it's going to collapse, it's just that it hasn't collapsed yet. I remember there were still many times before it became popular. 5 times or 7 times. Speaking, Nangong Yuezhen held his hand and pretended to think, clutching his non-existent beard under his chin. Seeing Nangong Yu so perfunctory, Fenmao Luoli dragged Nangong Yu towards the classroom without saying a word, not knowing where this strength came from. Takagi Saya also had goodwill towards him, so he gave him face and let him drag him back to the classroom. It seems that the afternoon spell cultivation has been ruined, so I have to choose to refine the energy in my body. Don't sneak out while the teacher is writing on the blackboard, or else you'll have your hair pulled out next time we meet. After a meaningless threat from the pink-haired pair of ponytails, he snorted and returned to his seat, then turned his head and glared fiercely at Nangong Yu. Finally, he turned back and opened the exercise book on the desk. Ha! I miscalculated the 9th question. Nangong Yuliang pondered and ultimately sat down in his own seat. Returning to the classroom, under the warning of Fenmao Shei's tiger teeth, Nangong Yu had no choice but to lie down on the desk and silently refine her energy in the familiar expressions of her classmates around her. He doesn't need his body to hold too much energy, after all, what he truly relies on is a powerful soul. A large part of one's own energy extraction method relies on spiritual power to incorporate external energy into the body, which means that one's energy recovery speed is extremely fast. Therefore, Nangong Yu only needs enough energy in his body to perform 3 or 4 major moves in a row. Refining energy while peeking around with 1,000-mile eyes open, happy times always pass by quickly. However, after the happy events are over, there are even happier things to follow. The bell of school will wake up Nangong Yu in a daze. The bell rang, indicating that he could finally go out to the waves. In my past life, I didn't carefully read the silence record, so I need to confirm when the end of the world will come. It's time for the enjoyable working hours again. First, go to the high ground and observe. Speaking, Nangong Yu arrived at a corner next to the teaching building where there was no one around. Then, distort a small area of space around the body, distort electromagnetic waves, and achieve stealth success. Design a single-person sofa, slowly lift yourself up to the sky, open your 1,000-mile eyes to observe this planet, with a focus on the several virus laboratories in Neon China. Based on the intelligence he has collected over the past few days, it can be concluded that there is at most 1 month left until this man-made disaster affects the world. Thinking of being able to harvest trillions, or even more souls, most importantly, the high-quality souls of billions of humans, makes me feel happy. If it weren't for the fact that my soul couldn't withstand the terrifying energy tides in the chaotic void, then the countless remaining souls would have been so fragrant. A soul of this strength would have evolved a few more times. If conditions permit, it would be good to be greedy and absorb the fragments of the entire shattered universe. Nangong Yu doesn't believe that those 2 unidentified creatures don't have this ability. Or rather, the relevant information is in his mind, but now he can only see a bunch of garbled characters. There's no way, after all, I'm not deep enough now to understand higher-level information, but this time it's different. The world itself is not destroyed, and the speed of soul dissipation is far less outrageous than in the void. In this way, even if he takes a slow walk, he can take away these souls, one that doesn't leak out. Secondly, if it is not oneself who is suffering from the calamity of life, Nangong Yu can harvest with peace of mind without worrying about being contaminated with karma. Furthermore, these viruses still have some value. Billions of humans, billions of animals, and infected individuals will always evolve into mutated individuals. Think of a way to strengthen your body when the time comes, so you don't have to worry about turning into a zombie. Not to mention that Nangong reading doesn't actually require a physical body, even if the chaotic energy in the body is not a joke. Crushing and devouring this basically zero mysterious virus is not as simple as flipping through a book. At present, Nangong Yu has not decided whether to follow the protagonist's team in action. After all, according to Yu's evaluation, only Ryoko Tokushima can be used greatly. Secondly, there is Takagi Saya, and Nangong Yu estimates that if she teaches the magic of Maoluoli to fans, she should be able to achieve good results. But that's all. To the extreme, being able to independently annihilate a modern army of less than 1,000 people is already the end. Afterwards, there will be everything in my dreams, such as breaking the city, destroying the country, annihilating stars, and destroying the world. As for the other members of the protagonist team, Nangong Yu has temporarily maintained zero expectations. The days from leaving school to arriving at Sayer's house are enough for me to harvest the soul of the entire bed owner city. If I practice teleportation in these few days, it will be enough to wrap up the entire Neon in one round. Nangong Yu was conflicted and quickly pondered for a few seconds, but decided to take action with Ryoko Tokushima for a period of time. That's right, for one person, Ryoko Tokushima. After all, currently Nangong Yu has detected that only she has the value of spending her time alone. As for how many people were following her around, it doesn't matter. So what should I hand over to Ryoko Tokushima? Nangong Yu is searching for a massive amount of information in her memory, once again caught in a dilemma. How about a space knife? Coincidentally, we can have more battles with her in the next few days. At present, even though I have good combat power, my actual combat experience is 0. I think this body should be enough for her to spend a lot of time. Yoshi. Let's make this decision first. After deciding to draw some combat experience first, Nangong Yu turned her gaze to the dojo of the Poison Island family. Scattering the sofa beneath him, he fell into the dojo while driving invisibly. Falling 200 meters behind Miss Poison Island, who was about to arrive home, I removed optical invisibility at a corner. Ignoring the ghostly expression of a high school student from a certain Longtao school 10 meters away, he followed Ryoko Tokushima and prepared for a romantic encounter that was not even romantic. Because he is preparing to throw a few spaceballs from a distance as a probe. Nangong Yu took this step by step, but in reality, she drifted 20 meters behind Ryoko Tokushima without touching the ground, throwing several temporary shaped air balls floating beside her towards Ryoko Tokushima. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. First encounter of Poison Island Ryoko. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ryoko Tokushima is truly a rare swordsmanship genius of contemporary times, with a reaction far exceeding that of ordinary people. In the blink of an eye, he quickly turned around according to the sound of breaking through the air behind him, and a few air cannons flashed lightly. In the moment of dodging, he casually pulled out the wooden knife from his sword bag and blocked an air cannon shot from the front. Bang! The space bomb, which had not been compressed and had a strength of almost 0, was directly split apart, but the impact still repelled Ryoko Tokushima. After sliding backwards for nearly 5 meters, Ryoko Tokushima stopped and looked up at the incoming person with great interest. At the first sight of the newcomer, the girl's eyes flashed with a flash of light. Not only the attack methods that she couldn't see before, but with her eyes, she noticed that the young man in front of her seemed normal, but in fact he was soaring. Although it is less than 1 centimeter. Seeing this, our Miss Poison Island was taken aback. As she regained her composure, her fighting spirit began to expand. She clenched her wooden knife in both hands and posed to face the young man floating towards her. After a brief observation and a moment of recollection, Ryoko Tokushima retrieved information about a character from his memory. Isn't this the famous salted fish genius in our school? But what's going on with you now? Isn't it the yin-yang technique? Is this the Taoist technique of China? Tell me, what can I do for you? Tokushima Ryoko said, ready to wield his sword and chop it down at any time. Don't be so excited, Poison Island senior sister. Isn't the Poison Island family a master of swordsmanship? Recently, I have achieved some success in my cultivation of spells, so I came to visit you. I guess Poison Island senior wouldn't have driven me away, would she? Furthermore, in terms of sparring, do senior students really need to take action here? At present, I haven't learned the technique of dispelling idle people yet, Nangong Yueshao said. Looking around in groups of people who seemed to be gathering to eat melons, Ryoko Tokushima had no choice but to put away his wooden knife with a displeased expression. Humph, keep up. But promise me, you'll have a fight with me later. Miss Poison Island decisively invited a battle. Ah. Indeed, as you wish. But it's not good to visit without a gift, I have to prepare for it on the way. Following Ryoko Tokushima, under her confusion, she began to operate with both hands. That's right, Nangong Yu is preparing to shape a Tai Dao. With his previous experience in Tang Dao design and his unconventional spirit, he is now familiar with it. Under the puzzled and surprised expression of Imperial Sister Zi Changji, a transparent sword slowly took shape in his hand. Seeing Tai Dao take shape, Poison Island Yazi's eyes shine. This spatial design knife, regardless of its power, looks crystal clear and has a sufficiently high appearance. Miss Poison Island, as a woman, naturally cannot avoid vulgarity, but her cultivation as a swordsman quickly withdrew her thoughts and questioned the practicality of this beautiful weapon. So, is this your ability, junior brother, to create things in the void? But why did it get like this? Can this handicraft be used as a weapon? Well, it's not wrong to say it's a creation in the void. The technique I currently master belongs to the form technique, which is called spatial form and can be considered a rare technique. Following Ryoko Tokushima, Nangong Yu gave him a brief introduction. Upon hearing the name of the technique mentioned by Nangong Yu and recalling the space bomb that initially repelled her, the clever young lady immediately realized how amazing the Tai Dao in front of her junior was and exclaimed in surprise. So, is this knife formed by directly compressing space? This is already a level that is clearly visible to the naked eye. It seems that both hardness and power are amazing. As Ryoko Tokushima finished speaking, Nangong Yu's work also happened to have been finalized successfully, and he immediately replied. Oh. I have some vision. That's right, this is a space-shaping knife, it's highly compressed. This level of compression is already my current limit, and I think there should be more than just hair blowing and hair breakage. This quality of spatial design product, with the magical capacity of Nangong Yu's body, can only produce a few pieces in a day, making it a relatively precious thing. Can I give it a try? The Poison Island Yazi's eyes lit up again. After all, this divine weapon is fatal to the temptation of a swordsman. Of course, not a problem, this was originally a gift for visiting the Poison Island family. As long as you can pass your father's level, this knife won't fly. Probably. Wait. Can you manipulate your figurines? As we approached the Poison Island family, the girl suddenly turned around and smiled. Nangong Yu looked at the young girl who seemed to be emitting black energy all over, and couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart, with a cold sweat starting to break out on her forehead. Well, once my design is disconnected, it cannot be controlled. I haven't learned the technique of mental motivation in comics yet, and can only manipulate things that have not yet disconnected their spiritual connection after styling, so. We can control it in the future. As the demon in front of him laughed even brighter, the boy with a strong desire for survival quickly explained that he didn't want to lose his physical body again after being reborn for a few days. Isn't that the future? Besides, there's no reason to recycle gifts given out. 5 seconds later, the purple-haired beautiful girl with a smile turned around and walked into the courtyard door. Ha! Survived. This is what we call 3 times stronger blackening. Nangong Yu muttered a few words in a low voice, and followed Yuko Tokushima into the courtyard of the Tokushima family. At the same time, she looked at the girl's back with lingering fear. If you feel wrong, this senior sister may really be a killer. Entering the house and taking a seat, the layout of the Poison Island family was as expected, with a typical Yamato style. Looking at the short dining table and several square cushions not far away, Nangong felt a knee pain. Although my ancestors also sat like this, come with me to the dojo. Poison Island senior sister couldn't help but say a word. Isn't it, Mississippi? Are you so irritable? It's just so irritable, come on. From childhood to adulthood, I have only fought against swordsmen. Junior, you are the first sorcerer I met, and I am so excited. Looking at the war-torn appearance of Sister Zimao, Nangong felt a headache. Miss, I have something to say. Although I believe my skill level is good, I have no practical combat experience. That's easy to say, senior sister. I will control my strength. She clearly didn't understand what Nangong meant when she said this. The education style of Daiwa Fuzi, which had been in place for many years, could not suppress this fighting spirit. Without hesitation, he dragged Nangong towards the dojo. Although I knew there would be a battle with Poison Island Yazi today, I didn't expect happiness to come so suddenly. Thinking that this was the second time she had been dragged away by a beautiful girl today, Nangong sighed helplessly and once again allowed her to do anything. Hey! Let's get started. Standing at a corner of the dojo, Nangong gestured to Genji standing diagonally. My design won't adjust the compression too high, so there's no need to worry about getting injured. By the way, do senior students hope their opponents are pure mages or melee mages? A melee mage. Pwai Junior, I observe your steps, but you are not a skilled athlete. The future is uncertain, but for now, you can honestly become your traditional mage. Poison Island Yazi has good eyesight, but Nangong is not very good at physical exercises. There may have been some ups and downs in the past life. After all, since the past life did not involve stepping into the inner world, there was no emphasis on training physical skills, only a simple polishing of the physique, and even no killing. Now it's even worse because he's been practicing spells these days, at best activating and adapting to the energy circuit of this body. Okay, be careful, senior. Because of the low compression, these shapes are basically invisible. At the same time, Nangong gathered more than 10 space bombs and an invisible shield around him. Immediately, the shield began to rotate at high speed, and the space bombs continued to thrust towards the diagonal direction of the dojo. Although invisible, the Poison Island Yazi is not deaf. She dodges the block according to the sound of breaking through the air and tries to charge towards the boy on the opposite side. As a mage, Nangong doesn't want to be approached by a swordsman. A dozen or so space bombs are like satellites, surrounding the Poison Island Yazi and attacking them one after another. For a moment, the young swordsman was exhausted and dodged invisible attacks on both sides, but in less than half a minute, the Poison Island Yazi surprisingly adapted. Oh! It's really amazing, senior. We need to accelerate now. Previously, even if hit, it would only hurt, but now it can hurt. Wait for me to break that turtle shell and then hit you hard. This is just a wooden knife, senior sister. I will control the force well. I don't know if your shield doesn't rotate. Are you looking down on me? Poison Island Yazi responded to flying objects while threatening Nangong, who was standing in a small whirlwind. That's as you wish. I hope Uncle won't blame me for being too aggressive later. Come on, senior. You can be even better. As she spoke, Nangong even sculpted a sofa and collapsed. With both hands flat on the armrest, the right hand clenched weakly, the fist supporting the cheek, smiling as the senior sister in front of her practiced exquisite martial arts, habitually using her own life ability to read and record it as a reference. Looking at Nangong's leisurely appearance, Ryoko Tokushima gritted his teeth and felt that the salted fish had been beaten less before. He decided to put in more effort later. Chapter 4. Guide. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Nangong Yu further activated the energy inside her body, and her bare hands and face turned from white to red. Then, the energy circuit of high-load operation appeared clearly on his skin in blood red. Under high energy consumption, the speed of the dozen or so space bombs surrounding the Poison Island Yazzie became faster and faster, and the final stable movement speed. Once a fatal Poison Island Yazzie's body is poisoned, the huge impact force will inevitably damage the internal organs. The Poison Island Yazzie seemed to be really serious when looking at Nangong Yu. After all, the blood-colored patterns that she couldn't understand appeared in this posture, and it didn't look very easy no matter how it looked. At the same time, these accelerating space bombs also made her sweat boil all over her body, forcing her to focus on the battle. Rolling and shifting left and right, intense exercise brings about a rapid loss of physical strength. In less than 5 minutes, the Poison Island Yazzie was already sweating profusely. Don't you give up yet, Poison Island Senior. If we keep going like this, it won't be easy to deal with if we get seriously injured. Although Nangong Yu can still make fun of Poison Island Yazzie, it is based on the immense spiritual power brought by his strong soul, and the strong will hone through the experience of the disaster of destruction. In fact, after a few minutes, this body has almost reached its limit under the high load of energy operation. If he persists for a few more minutes, he may damage the foundation, although he doesn't need to care too much about these. Although Nangong Yu has never moved throughout, his current condition is not much better than that of Poison Island Yazzie, and he is still soaked in sweat. Moreover, the blood streaks on the surface of his skin appeared to be ready to burst with blood at any moment. As both sides approached the brink of collapse, they gradually withdrew in tacit agreement and returned to the initial state of confrontation. Junior, let's take a decisive move next. I see that once those blood streaks on your body explode, the damage you may suffer may be even more severe than being hit. Thank you very much for your concern, senior sister. I can still hold on. However, as my senior sister wishes, it's good. Please give it your all and let me see what a rare swordsmanship genius really has. Poison Island Yazzie took deep breaths several times and suddenly focused on Nangong Yu, attacking head-on at a speed far exceeding Nangong Yu's expectations. In less than a second, as Poison Island Yazzie approached and was within 2 meters of herself, Nangong Yu also took action. Shenluo. Tianzheng. The high-speed rotating spatial barrier rapidly expands under the shape, control, of Nangong Yu. As the barrier was about to touch Jianji in front of him, he once again shaped a shield that only wrapped around himself, and decisively detonated the outer barrier in advance. Suddenly, a strong shockwave swept across the Poison Island Yazzie. The Poison Island Yazzie, who had never faced such an attack before, had to lower down and put on a sword-blocking posture. As expected, he was then fiercely repelled by the passing shockwave, and his feet drew 2 long parallel lines on the ground of the dojo before finally stopping before colliding with the wall. Cough cough. My junior brother is indeed impressive. Thank you very much for your mercy. Speaking, the Poison Island Yazzie left a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth, but it was quickly wiped away by her. Feeling the touch coming from the soles of the feet, the soles of the shoes were almost completely worn out, and this pair of shoes is definitely scrapped. Excuse me, but Poison Island's senior sister uses a wooden knife. If I give her a sharp blade, I may be in danger also. After all, we're just sparring, so it's unlikely to cause any harm. The blood streaks on his body slowly faded, wiping away the sweat from his forehead. Nangong Yu responded with a smile. Just as Nangong Yu and Poison Island Yazzie were reviewing their previous battles without a word, the young man suddenly turned around with a smile. Hello uncle. Hasty visit, a moment of carelessness may have hurt your beloved, please forgive me haha. It's okay however, what a powerful ability. Although I heard that there may be supernatural beings in the world, I never expected to witness them with my own eyes now. Also, don't worry about the little girl getting injured. It's her own battle. How can she become stronger without being injured? It is better to be injured now than to die in the future, which is a necessary realization for Yazi as a swordsman. Also, are you a superpower? I'm very curious when I first saw a psychic, father. How did you come back? Is the foreign dojo okay? Said the Poison Island Yazi in surprise. Well, isn't this coming back to tidy up some things and take them away? I'll leave the day after tomorrow. I came back during your battle, and I saw that you were quite happy, so I didn't disturb you. But this little friend has already discovered it. By the way, the little friend hasn't replied yet. Can you please satisfy the curiosity of the elderly? It's hard to come and visit without introducing yourself. After responding to my daughter, Tokushima Yako's father Tokushima turned to Nangong Uedao. No problem, I am an international student from China, a descendant of Poison Island senior sister. My surname is Nangong, and my single name is Yu. Uncle just calls me Reed. As for abilities, it can be considered, however, it is necessary for me to correct here that all abilities in this world are skills, just like modern science and technology. The supernatural beings mentioned by my uncle are just innate awakenings that best suit me. And they all know how to use it one by one, without any clear principles, but Xiaodao. But I am not one of those superpowers awakened by talent, I am a legitimate sorcerer. This ability is all acquired through steady cultivation. Today happened to be a good day, and I have achieved some success in my spell cultivation, so I came to visit. Mainly based on my investigation, Ling AI had exceptional talent along the way of cultivation. If you embark on the path of cultivation, you will surely achieve great success in the future. Therefore, come and visit to see if you can become a guide for your senior sister. So, I think Yazi is approaching the bottleneck. But Yazi is a swordsman. According to the friend's introduction, you are a sorcerer, so it's impossible to teach a swordsman how to draw talismans and invite gods. Right after listening to Nangong Yu's introduction in the direction of this trip, Poison Island frowned slightly and pondered. He has a lot of experience, and although this young man may be polite in discussing, his true intention should be to notify. No problem, uncle. On my end, there are several techniques that are suitable for Poison Island senior sister to teach her. But most importantly, I want to lead my senior sister on the path of energy cultivation. You should know that without energy, one cannot become a true powerhouse. Leaving aside the great source of nature, it is too difficult for ordinary people. But at the very least, one must learn to harness their physical and mental energy in order to go further from being an ordinary person to being extraordinary. I believe that with the qualifications of a senior sister, once she embarks on the path of cultivation, her strength will definitely skyrocket. Faced with my inquiry from Poison Island, Nangong Yu said with rare seriousness. After speaking, not to mention the way Yazi from Poison Island tried to suppress her excitement, I was also moved by Poison Island. Strictly speaking, for ordinary people who have never been involved in mystery, this can be considered a great creation. After thinking about it, I decided to agree to the invitation from Nangong Yu. Without a father, I hope my daughter will become a phoenix. This is related to my daughter's life. If I miss it, I'm afraid I will regret it in the future. Let's just rely on my little friend. I happen to be going to a foreign dojo tomorrow, so I won't be able to spend more time with my child. So, the cultivation of my beloved daughter is up to me. Yazi, thank you very much, Nangong. The middle-aged man simply took advantage of the situation, and he didn't want to provoke a strange and inexplicable sorcerer for nothing. You should know that modern law has no binding force in the face of magic, and even if someone dies from magic, there is no way to obtain evidence. Thank you very much, Junior. So, please give me more guidance in the future. The Poison Island Yazi, who transformed into Yamato Fuzi, saluted. Well, Poison Island senior sister doesn't need to be polite either. I also think that with the qualifications of a senior sister, it would be a pity to just disappear from the crowd. So, senior sister, starting from tomorrow, we will officially embark on the path of transcendence. The journey of transcendence is arduous, so senior students should be fully mentally prepared. At the same time as returning the gift, Nangong Yu did not forget to joke. Don't worry, little friend. You don't have to worry about Yazi's talent. As a father, I can see her will. At least I can rest assured. Please don't worry, little friend. Humph, I'm a Poison Island Yazi. As a teacher, don't be defeated by me. And what about the gift? Sure enough, the swordsman's nature was exposed, and Poison Island Yazi still couldn't forget that stylish knife. Oh. Did the little friend bring a gift? Judging from Yazi's appearance, this gift may not be simple. After listening, Nangong Yu chuckled lightly, opened the storage space, and handed over the prepared taidao. Poison Island took the transparent samurai sword with a surprised expression on his face. Years of experience told him that this weapon, which looks like a craft, is not as simple as it looks. He immediately asked excitedly. Can you let me try the old man's knife? The swordsman's instinct made Poison Island tremble with excitement. Please do as you please. Since the gift has been given, then this weapon already belongs to the Poison Island family. Uncle can do whatever he wants. After speaking, seeing the anxious expression on Poison Island and the same expression on Poison Island's face, Nangong Yu had no choice but to follow Poison Island's father and daughter to the dojo again. Chapter 5. Transformation of Forms and Shadows, Skyshift. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The father and daughter of Poison Island finished their trial and were surprised by the performance of the knife. And Nangong Yu, who achieved his goal, said goodbye and left because he still needs to practice teleportation skills tonight. If the practice goes smoothly, you can also make some arrangements within this city through teleportation, such as supply points and teleportation points. Of course, it's mainly the teleportation point. As for the supplies at the supply point, it will be sufficient to transfer them in large quantities to major supermarkets after the end of the world opens, and it is uncertain that a small amount of soul can be collected along the way. In the surprise of the father and daughter of Poison Island, Nangong Yu slowly ascended into the sky, bent down to bow, and then put on a shield of twisted photons to complete his invisibility, and then broke through the air. Seeing Nangong Yu disappear, I also came to my senses and explained to Poison Island Yazi. Yazi, follow that child to practice well in the future. This is a great creation. Father, I am already of this age. Based on various secrets, it is estimated that even if I follow the practice, there will not be much improvement. But you're different, you haven't missed the best time for cultivation yet, even just right. Also, I observed the child's pace, and you should have noticed it too, Yazi. It doesn't seem like a skilled athlete. He came to us not only because of your talent, Yazi, but also because of the inheritance of our Poison Island family's swordsmanship. That child should have noticed that I have already tacitly agreed, so if he asks you about swordsmanship in the future, there is no need to hide anything. Father, I promise you to teach that child everything in return for his guidance. I understand, Father. I will repay him well. Although thanking Nangong Yu, her Poison Island Yazi is not so easily injured. The girl has decided that in the future, when she becomes familiar with Nangong Yu and instructs her in swordsmanship, she must strike hard. The camera zoomed back to Nangong to read this, and by then he had returned to his small courtyard, set up a barrier with a shaped shield, and began practicing teleportation in his memory. For the only spatial displacement technique left in his mind, Nangong Yu decided to learn the instant movement technique that maximizes his combat power, called shape transformation. That's right, the name of the spell is the same as the one in the world where a Z-shaped scar is located on the forehead. However, the effect of the spell is no longer limited to the position it has been to, but as long as the caster can determine the coordinates, they can exchange the space within a certain range of their own with the space within the same range as the coordinate point, achieving the goal of spatial movement. However, the scope of this technique is limited to the same space, and it cannot be successfully transferred across different spaces. That is to say, one can only run around in one world. If there is still an attached space in this world, it is impossible to enter through the technique of shifting shapes and shadows. Also, this technique can also be used to attack. Because the essence of this technique is to cut two spaces of the same size and shape from the main space at the same time, then exchange the positions of these two spaces, and finally let them return to the main space again. All this is done in an instant. However, using this technique to achieve high-frequency instantaneous movement requires extremely high reaction speed from the caster, but it is not a problem for the current Nangong. Not to mention his current soul strength, he is already able to accelerate his thinking limit to tens of thousands of times just by instinct, but he doesn't need to be so ruthless. As long as he accelerates 10 times, 100 times, or even 5 times, it is basically enough. Not to mention that in Nangong's memory, there are several techniques specifically designed to accelerate thinking. When combined in multiple aspects, in a short period of time, Nangong should be able to shake off a short-lived yellow hair fire shadow for thousands of streets in terms of speed. 6 hours later, it was already 1 o'clock in the morning. This technique consumes a lot of energy every time it is used. Swap 2 cubic meters of space within a 100-meter range, and with the energy of my current body, it will become empty and blue after more than 20 consecutive attempts. Fortunately, the mental energy is still acceptable. Just swapping the space that just covers the size of the body, the mental energy consumption is actually 100 times that of just 2 cubic meters of space. Fortunately, the energy consumption has also decreased by more than 10 times compared to before. It is probably only me who can cast spells recklessly at this stage. Right, in that case, taking into account the energy recovery speed during combat, this technique is already a conventional means in combat. Nangong, who had successfully practiced spells, was in a happy mood and temporarily ignored the hunger and fatigue in his body, preparing to try long-distance teleportation. Returning to full energy, according to the energy consumption algorithm matched with the technique, the coordinate positioning gradually widens, opening a 1,000-mile eye, finding an abandoned building within the limit range of the calculation, and then swapping the space. It's really uncomfortable to instantly clear energy. Can only teleport 50 kilometers with this technique currently. No way. Unable to provide true remote support yet. Further compressing energy to increase total body energy takes a long time, and the cost-effectiveness is worrying. On the rooftop of a dilapidated building, Nangong pondered and sat down at the edge of the roof, recovering his energy while considering the direction of his future studies. Is it at most 1 month? I hope you can give me a few more days. At this time it seems that we still need to learn a technique for remote teleportation. Well, just thinking about it, remote teleportation doesn't require instant casting, and getting stuck in the shape-shifting technique is also unnecessary. So go back. After making the decision, Nangong jumped down and disappeared into this abandoned building. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Nangong, who had solved the problem of hunger, did not need sleep due to her strong mental strength. Shaped a lounge chair, and after lying down, began to select it in the plural teleportation technique. Randomly teleport to a distant location. I don't want to leave so early yet. All of them are techniques for opening spatial channels. Let's see if there are any techniques that have a relatively short casting time and can consume less energy. Nangong unconsciously made extravagant speeches, flipping through them for less than 2 minutes before finishing, and then began to pick and choose. Tianyi. Is it? Another familiar name. The effect of the technique is also similar. Open the door and enter a different space, then open the door and come out. But where is there any room for me to enter? My body's energy is not enough to open the door and lock out of the world, and relying on the energy of my soul to escape from my body is enough. But it's useless. My soul can't withstand the ravages of emptiness and chaos. The storage space created by the techniques recorded in the spatial design cannot be used by ordinary living creatures. The method of constructing a portable space is included. While fortunately, I have practiced spatial modeling in advance, and according to this method of spatial construction that can accommodate living creatures, at my current energy recovery rate, it will also take half a month. It seems that we can't use our bodies anymore. We can't waste half a month in such a simple way. It should be much faster to just use our souls. After making the decision, Nangong Yu's soul immediately detached from her body, and seeing that her physical activity remained the same, she confidently attempted to construct a portable space. 50 hours at the macro level is acceptable. Once the time is confirmed, Nangong Yu has to consider the issue of her external body. During the spell casting period, the soul cannot return to the body, and most importantly, the spell casting cannot be interrupted, otherwise it will be in vain. So it needs to be determined whether to use the body as a puppet or simply separate it into clones. Thinking about this, Nangong Yu has a headache. She hasn't learned any clone techniques or puppet techniques, and it's also possible to control her body without mental fluctuations using illusion techniques. The problem is that she hasn't learned any illusion techniques. Thinking about these Nangong Yu is really frustrating. It's better to be a clone, cast spells directly with the soul, body, and can persist for a little longer. There are still too few methods. Let's see if we can learn a few more simple techniques before going to school. However, we need to first complete the clone technique, as many inconvenient things in the body can be used to pull the coolies. Spy intelligence, seize control at any time, act as a remote terminal, and have nothing to play with, and self-destruct. It can also be used in cultivation, where clones kill each other and experience rewards. Thinking about the use of clones and related taboos, continue browsing through the memory bank. Nangong Yu even used extreme mental acceleration in order to find what he needed among the many techniques that had not yet been summarized. Seeing this, Nangong Yu said that she had one more thing to do. After 20 seconds of external time, Nangong Yu selected the required clone technique. Is the spatial attribute of the clone technique suitable for the current me? Let's get it done as soon as possible. Fortunately, we have recorded the energy operation circuit, so we should be able to get started quickly. Hey, this extreme acceleration of thinking reminds me of the disappearance of my hometown. Haha, there's still a long way to go. Under the acceleration of the limit of thinking, within a few seconds of external time, a clone successfully separated. The energy in the clone's body is even more abundant than his own body, but the expression of the soul's Nangong Yu is somewhat subtle. Chapter 6. Exploring Gaocheng Saya. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Thinking of the powerful ability of the clone in front of her, Nangong Yu not only did not feel surprised, but her expression was a bit subtle. It's a bit like that. The prison next to the wheel tomb. Why is it transparent? However, it's good to be able to escape into space and avoid damage at any time. The problem is, what I need now is not these features. Just as Nangong Yu was going crazy, something suddenly came to mind, and then his eyes lit up. By the way, because it is a clone of the soul body, it seems that this thing can attach to my body. Separating a trace of divine consciousness to control this body, Nangong Yu decided to use this temporary spiritual body to move outside in the next few days. After all, the vast majority of his spiritual power is responsible for casting spells, and he himself will have to teach the extraction method of chaotic energy to Poison Island Yazzie tomorrow. If she has the intention to learn the techniques, she needs to introduce the several techniques she has previously organized. But currently, I can only choose one and don't have that much energy. She's not me, she doesn't know how to speed up her thinking. If her cultivation speed can be several times faster than a normal person's level, it would be amazing. After organizing the itinerary, Nangong Yu should quickly start building a different space. Who knows how long it will take after it really starts. The 50 hours in the calculation are just the most ideal scenario. Then, his space cannot be too small, so 50 hours is probably not enough. Before the completion of the alien space structure, the cultivation of the Poison Island Yazzie relies solely on this weak body, spirit, and it is unclear whether it can be sustained. No, I can't say. There's still Takagi Saya. She has decent qualifications. Let's try it out tomorrow, but most likely she will agree. Immediately, the sole subject of Nangong Yu officially began to construct a different space, and his spiritual power began to operate at full capacity. The externalized body controlled by the main consciousness, attached to one's own body, immediately opened their eyes and sat up, ready to go to the bedroom to rest. The burden of this spiritual body. The sudden fatigue made him unable to stand firm for a while and almost fell. And now. It seems that this clone technique still has limitations. At this level, Qianlian can only look at this city at most, and it doesn't have much impact now. Also, this comes from a sense of mental fatigue. Sure enough, when my mental strength was too strong, I didn't feel it. Now it seems that the pressure on this body is a bit excessive. Does this match the current true level of this body? However, I really can't hold on anymore without sleeping. I have to go to school tomorrow. The next morning, Nangong Yu, who was awakened by the alarm clock, woke up with a face full of reluctance and prepared to arrive at school. Sitting in the classroom seat and seeing Takagi Saya's seat, it was natural to recall the next journey. Nangong Yu, whose spiritual strength had temporarily returned to normal levels, felt a headache. The future is worrying. A strong soul is not omnipotent, and this body is being squeezed too hard. If we continue like this, it would be good if the lifespan of this body could last for 40 years. The body must also strengthen, otherwise, something will happen sooner or later. After thinking about it, the exhaustion conveyed by his body made him lie down on the desk without saying a word and start to catch up. When sleeping, time passes by in a blink of an eye. When Nangong Yu wakes up, it is already the first half of the last class in the morning. The energetic boy stretched lazily, twisted his waist to straighten himself, and took out his phone from his desk to check the time, under the teacher's accustomed and helpless expression. Looking up at who the teacher was, I took out the corresponding textbook and spent less than 2 minutes symbolically browsing through it from beginning to end, which was a sign of respect. Then I remembered my goal for today, took out my notebook, flipped over to the corner of the blank page, wrote a few words, and then tore them off. The paper strip was transformed and presented on paper in front of Takagi Saya. Gaocheng had never seen such an incredible thing before and was startled, but the upbringing of the big family quickly calmed him down and he did not shout out. Turning his head slightly, he looked discreetly from side to side, took a deep breath, and as he calmed down, Takagi Saya looked at the small note in front of him. After school in the morning, come to the rooftop to find me. Miss should know where I am, right? I need to contact you for something, or rather the Takagi family. Don't you always want to know what I'm doing on the Heavenly Sky platform? I can satisfy Miss Gaocheng's strong curiosity. Don't worry, it won't kill you, #dish. Gaocheng looked at the familiar tone and turned his head, his gaze fixed on Nangong Yu's smiling face, unable to resist gritting his teeth. But considering that it's still class time and it's not easy to get angry, I had to endure it for now and decide to wait until this annoying guy looks good. Turning back, looking at the paper without any creases and its eerie appearance, the highly intelligent and talented woman felt that things were not simple. Or rather, Nangong Yu was not an easy person, so he decided to go to the rooftop after school to find him. After all, it seems that Nangong Yu is probably not an ordinary person now. Being targeted by this abnormal presence, if the other party fails to achieve the goal, she doesn't know what strange experiences she will have afterwards. Looking at the content of the note again regarding his own family, Takagi Saya felt even more unable to refuse. Sitting behind Gaocheng, Nangong Yu used his 1,000-mile eyes to observe Gaocheng's seemingly unnecessary complex mental journey before continuing to gaze at the sky. With nothing to do, continue to observe the research progress of those zombie virus laboratories throughout the city. 10 minutes later, seeing that the progress of the experiment did not exceed Nangong Yu's expectations, he withdrew his gaze. Although there are some concerns about whether there may be any changes in other laboratories around the world, the spiritual body he is currently manipulating is limited in strength and cannot monitor the world to the same extent as its own body, so he simply disregards it. A class passed quickly, it's almost time to finish. Nangong, you've secretly put everything into the storage space bound to her body, and stood up directly from the back door of the classroom to leave. Within a few seconds of Nangong Yu leaving the classroom, the bell rang for the end of class. Gaocheng Shay couldn't help but get angry as Nangong Yu gradually walked away. But as a model student, she couldn't directly pursue her and could only helplessly wait for the teacher's instructions after school. The teacher on the podium was originally planning to add a little more content, but looking at the group of bear children now, including even the good student Takagi Saya, they seem to be wandering in the sky. He is not a devil either, so he quickly concluded and announced the end of class. The liberated bear children are like wild beasts emerging from their cages except for those who bring their own bento. Everyone else rushes towards the small shop with bright eyes, fearing that they won't be able to grab the daily limited edition of fried noodles and bread. Takagi Saya finally breathed a sigh of relief, tidied up his things briefly, brought his personal belongings, and walked slowly towards the rooftop where Nangong Yu often stayed, like stepping on ants. She, who is a bit stingy, is planning to make that bastard wait a little longer. But she didn't know that all of this was being watched by Nangong Yu, who had thousands of miles of eyes open. Seeing this, calculating the time, I decided not to wait for her anymore. He designed 2 sofas, which are rare, and he also deliberately controlled the degree of compression in certain parts of the design, making the touch softer. Among the 2 sofas facing the distance, Nangong Yu chose the one on the left to sit down and feel the comfortable touch. She expressed great satisfaction. Subsequently, Nangong Yu showed off his transformation and brought 2 fried noodles and bread from the warehouse of the small sales department. He opened the packaging of one of them and ate it happily. Halfway through the meal, there was a sound of opening the door behind me. Then, I controlled the sofa under me to rise slightly, and slowly turned to the pink-haired loli who was frozen in place after opening the door. "Welcome, cute Miss Gaocheng, can you tell me how many ants you have trampled on all the way?" Nangong Yu, who was leaning against the transparent sofa, joked to Takagi Saya without saying a word, but at this moment, Takagi Saya did not recover from the bizarre scene in front of him. "Wake up, child. Look at your unseen appearance, quickly lock the door and take your seat." Nangong Yu waved his left hand, which was idle on the armrest, to the left and instructed Takagi Saya to take his seat. Then, regardless of her reaction, she controlled the sofa under her seat to slowly turn back and continue to eliminate the bread in her right hand. How to put it, although this thing doesn't have much nutrition, its taste is still good. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. Pink Double Horsetail Entering the Pit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Having regained his senses, Takagi Saya looked at Nangong Yu as he slowly turned around. Although he was not angry, he saw the scene before him and believed that the black-haired boy in front of him was related to the rumored existence of the inner world. But thinking about how this guy keeps his composure all day, he sat down on the sofa on the right side of Nangong Yu without any hesitation. Looking at the sofa he was sitting on, it was obvious that it didn't look like a normal object. Thinking of the suddenly appearing note in class, Gao Qingsha's heart was filled with a hint of longing. After all, a little girl of her age has little resistance to these fantastical things, even materialistic high achievers like Takagi Saya cannot avoid vulgarity. I can't tell that the famous genius in our school is still a hidden figure in the world. Honestly explain what's going on. After all, the two of them have known each other for 2 years, and Takagi Saya does not consider himself an outsider and speaks bluntly. Yo ha, you're really chubby, this is how we can get along with each other. If it were other mages, it would be embarrassing to see ordinary people shouting at us and not doubting us. There's one more fried noodles and bread, let's eat it. Listening to the familiar tone of Fenmao, Nangong Yu didn't care and handed another bread in the storage space to Gaocheng Sayer. Wow. Ariga. Duo. Is this space magic in comics? Not bad, no wonder you hardly bring anything every day. Do you keep all your things in your personal space? It's so convenient. Also, are these two sofas we are sitting on also your magical creations? Isn't it also a type of spatial magic? Did the bread just now and the previous note move instantly? Can you manipulate space as you please? No, if it's magic, is there anything else? Nangong you couldn't help but feel a little stunned as he looked at Gaocheng, who had opened his conversation box. In less than 2 seconds, Nangong Yu, who had come to his senses, quietly watched as Gaocheng asked questions one by one without replying. Importantly, he couldn't get in touch either. Half a minute later, the excited pink fur finally cooled down. Cough. Cough. I'm not curious, Mississippi. That's right. That's it. Nangong Yu looked helplessly at the pink-haired double ponytails in front of her, demonstrating the proud and delicate standard mode without dismantling the stage. She selected a few questions that could be answered and replied, as you expected, I am a sorcerer. As for whether you treat me as a magician, a master of yin and yang, or a Taoist, it doesn't matter. Here, I don't differentiate these things either. The sofa and storage space are both products of the same technique, which is also my current major in space design. As its name suggests, a great cultivator can ravage space recklessly, but it is difficult to move instantly with this skill. Using storage space to access items does not count. The technique that achieves instant movement is another technique, called shape-shifting, which involves swapping two spaces. Of course, only two spaces can be swapped at a time, and to achieve multiple spaces transposition, multiple spells can only be cast. Nangong Yu took out a bottle of water and took a sip, threw it back into the space, and continued. As for manipulating space as you please, don't think about it. It's still a long time ago. I am currently just getting started, and there are still many complex operations that I haven't learned or cannot learn. My current level of spatial magic is almost reaching the current limit of this body. In short, I can only enrich my means now. If I want to increase my limits, I don't need to think about it in the short term. After all, human body energy is limited, and many high-intensity operations are extremely difficult for humans. I am not prepared to touch them now to avoid damaging the foundation. Well, that's really amazing. So what's Nangong Jun looking for me or the Gaocheng family for? After listening to Nangong Yue's explanation, Gaocheng pondered and immediately got to the main topic. I'm just looking for you this time for one purpose, inheritance. Since a year ago, when I achieved some success in my magical cultivation, I have been searching for talents in this school, and even in this city. I don't know if it's luck or something, but I found two geniuses with far more qualifications than ordinary people in this school. Even I was surprised by the qualifications of one of them. Originally, I was able to reach this level at this age, and I think my qualifications should be very impressive. It's not an exaggeration to say that there is no one among them. I didn't expect to find a demon that was similar to or even stronger than me in the blink of an eye. Before he could finish speaking, Takagi-saya interjected the topic with a proud expression, clearly indicating a misunderstanding. That means that the demon is Miss I, right? After speaking, he proudly raised his head slightly. I'm sorry. That demon is not you. Don't take your seat in advance, you are another one. Don't be sad, be happy. Your qualifications are much better than ordinary people, so I'm quite optimistic about you. What? Is there a genius in this school who is even more talented than Miss Ben? Ah, you bastard, doesn't count. I don't believe it. Who is that guy? Hearing that she was not the most qualified one clearly stimulated Fenmao's self-esteem, and the result instantly exploded. Ah, you should know someone who is stronger than you. Your little arms and legs can't compete with her. What? The young lady was covered in question marks. Gaocheng classmate, you must know him. If you just went to find him so easily, I estimate that you may die suddenly. Reminder, Kendo department. Looking at the pink-haired loli who had not yet reacted, Nangong Yu reminded. Sigma Poison Island senior sister Gaocheng She, who received the explicit response, immediately reacted and became emotionally excited. Ah, that's her. I already visited the Poison Island family yesterday. Fortunately for me, the head of the Poison Island family happened to come back yesterday and also consulted with the opinions of the Poison Island family head and the Poison Island senior. Her father has agreed to let me teach Sister Poison Island. After causing trouble for a long time, I was actually the second Mississippi. Nangong Yu, you bastard! Upon learning that she was not a precedent, Takagi Saya exploded again. Seeing this, Nangong Yu decided to give her some time to calm down on her own. Half a minute later, seeing that Gao Qingsha's emotions had calmed down, Nangong Yu officially issued an invitation. So, Gaocheng, if I want to guide you on the path of cultivation, can you make your own decisions? If it's not possible, we can go to your home together to seek the opinions of your parents. Don't worry about the afternoon homework, use shape-shifting to change images quickly. Watching Nangong Yu enter the theme, Takagi Saya began to ponder, his expression constantly changing, and then seemed to have figured something out. The rebellious period of pink-hair loli decisively agreed. This kind of thing can naturally be decided by Miss, there's no need to ask her parents at all. Anyway, they don't care about me on weekdays. Upon hearing Gao Qingsha's answer, Nangong Yu secretly said, indeed, that's true. However, he still respects Sha Ye's decision, as this child has a strong sense of self-esteem and should not refute it at this time. However, he still decided to meet with her parents alone later, so as to have an explanation. Okay, then welcome to Nangong Teacher's Mage Training Camp. Let's gather here after school this afternoon. The invitation task was completed, and Nangong Yu immediately returned to its original form, giving inappropriate instructions. I see. If it weren't for not being able to defeat you, I would definitely make you look good. After a period of low mood, Takagi Saya, who made the decision without authorization, heard this familiar and annoying tone and instantly revived with full blood. He gave up a harsh sentence and then turned around and left. Watching the pink-haired loli disappear from the naked eye's sight, Nangong Yu revoked the sofa where Gao Qingsha was sitting and continued to use Qianli Eye to inspect the virus laboratory in the city to avoid any mistakes and prepare in advance. 5 minutes later, Nangong Yu stood up to confirm that there was no problem. Remove the last sofa, twist the space and crush the bread packaging bag in desiccant. After confirming the coordinates, Qianlian puts on an invisible shield and then repeatedly uses shape-shifting to move towards the Takagi family. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Visiting the Takagi family and stealing the arsenal. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 10 minutes in front, back, and forth, he arrived at Takagi's house and took a few seconds to locate Takagi Shoichiro's position. Nangong Yu found the sofa on the side of his desk and teleported over. Takagi Shoichiro, who was reviewing the materials, keenly noticed an abnormal fluctuation in the indoor air. He immediately put down the document in his hand and searched everywhere for the abnormal place. In less than 5 seconds, Mr. Zhuangyilang saw on one side of the sofa, the armrest and seat close to his desk had a noticeable depression, as if sitting alone, and he also felt a line of sight staring at him. For a moment, the atmosphere in the office was somewhat eerie. Mr. Zhuangyilang had never encountered such a strange thing before, and his mind was also fluctuating uncontrollably. But the city government, honed from years of high position and the will of the soldiers, made him calm down in the shortest possible time. Facing him with invisibility on, he leaned on the sofa and looked at his Nangong Yu as he probed. If you meet me in this way, there must be important matters to discuss. This room is not monitored or monitored, you can appear with confidence upon hearing Gao Qingzhuang's explanation, Nangong Yu couldn't help but be taken aback. He has never considered these things before. After all, after the start of the end of the world, he is preparing to harvest a wave on a global scale and leave, regardless of whether these things are there or not. Besides, based on previous observations, there is currently no life or force on this planet that can pose a threat to itself, and he doesn't even consider hiding his anomalies. However, thinking that it is necessary to inform the family of Fenmao Luoli, it is not a waste of time. After all, there is still class in the afternoon, so I immediately removed my protective shield to show my form. Seeing Nangong Yuexian's appearance, Takagi Shoichiro immediately recognized the young man in front of him, wearing his daughter's school uniform. He frowned and said, "Isn't this the Chinese genius in Sayer's class who doesn't make progress all day? I've been wondering how your grades came about. According to Sayer's description, you either sleep or skip classes all day, symbolically flipping through books at most, and in the morning, you don't seem to be feeling lethargic, obviously not someone who goes home to study on your own. Have your superpowers developed your brain?" Takagi Shoichiro didn't directly get to the point. When he saw that he was his daughter's classmate or someone with a good relationship, he didn't knock around and ask directly. "Ah. Let's just take it for granted. I still have something to do with my uncle this time." About Gaocheng's classmate. In a simple response, Nangong Yu, who didn't want to spend too much time, went straight to the main topic. Looking at the young man in front of him, he directly got to the point, and Takagi Shoichiro didn't mind. He asked, "Oh. Saya, what's bothering you to make a special trip? It's not close to Fujimi here." Upon hearing this response, Nangong Yu immediately continued. "It's not really a big deal, it's just that I've been searching for talents in the field of cultivation throughout this year, and recently confirmed that Ling Ai has far more qualifications than ordinary people, hoping to guide her on the way. Well, after school this afternoon, I invited my classmate from Gaocheng to the rooftop of the school and asked about it. In the end, she agreed to practice with me." If that's the case, I also agree. This is also my daughter's fate. However, hasn't this child thought about coming back to discuss with me and Lily? Mr. Zhuangilang was first pleased and then pondered. "Well. That's also why I came to find my uncle. I originally asked if I needed to ask for your opinion, but it seems that Gaocheng struggled for a while and finally said he can make the decision." At that time, seeing her like that, considering her self-esteem, I couldn't argue back. However, I still feel it is necessary to say something to my uncle and aunt. After all, she is your daughter, and you have the right to know. After listening to Nangong Yu's explanation, Takagi Shoichiro was taken aback, followed by a bitter smile. "Haha. This child, but it's also because we rarely accompany her. I believe that with Sayer's intelligence, we can understand the hardships of being parents. But it seems that understanding doesn't mean agreement. That child probably has a lot of resentment towards us. Well, I am also pleased to have the consciousness to make independent decisions. So, let's leave it to you, Sayer. That's no problem, I won't allow such outstanding talents to have problems. Uncle can rest assured. By the way, starting from school this afternoon, Gaocheng's cultivation will begin, so there is no need to send someone to pick her up. I will see her home before 10 p.m. tonight in order to dispel concerns," Nangong Yu promised. Well, I agree on behalf of myself and Lily. Please be careful, I'm afraid that child will be eager for quick success and instant benefits while practicing. According to hearsay, excessive cultivation can be dangerous, you need to be careful. Upon hearing Nangong Yu's promise, Takagi's father also politely advised. Thank you, Uncle. Could you please inform Aunt? Due to time constraints, I have to go back to school. Do you need a car to send you? No trouble. So Uncle, I'll leave first. After speaking, he didn't put on a shield and just shifted his form and left the Takagi family. Takagi Shoichiro, who was also a skilled swordsman, saw Nangong Yu's way of leaving and understood why there were no subordinates reporting the situation. No movement trajectory. Moving instantly. This little guy is really amazing, it would be a good thing for Sayer to follow him. Nangong Yu, who had left Gaocheng's home, took out his phone and checked the time. There were still more than 10 minutes left for class, and he immediately decided on his next itinerary. There's still time, but even if you're late, it's okay. Let me see, the nearest military base. Ah, from the Gaocheng family, just seduced. Cough cough. It's not good to take their daughter as an apprentice and just play tricks on her. So who is the next lucky audience? The Self-Defense Force. Decided it was you. After determining the target, move on and take on the journey. Not far from the destination, Nangong Yu drove into the arsenal with stealth teleportation, sensing the electromagnetic waves twisted through her body. She couldn't help but marvel at the power of the spatial design, so she felt relieved to search for inventory in the arsenal. A minute later, looking at the huge inventory in his small personal space, Nangong Yu looked unhappy and regretted why he just casually took one and finished it. Otherwise, there would be no current problem. Just pack them all and take them away. As a result, we still need to expand the storage space in our current, broken, state. You should know that the spiritual body currently used by Nangong Yu is not much higher than its current level, and its energy recovery speed is not as fast as before. The speed of expanding space is at least 100 times slower than before. Looking at this inventory, if we want to pack it up and take it away, we need at least 10,000 cubic meters. This is only calculated for small items such as firearms, ammunition, bulletproof vests, and cold weapons. Nangong Yu decided not to take the car and plane anymore. Fortunately, these firearms and ammunition were placed in sealed boxes, which was a great help to him. If you only empty out the central area of each box and then use some figurines to take up space, it is estimated that those silly people outside will not be able to discover that the arsenal has been stolen for half a month. The determined Nangong Yu immediately began to expand its storage space. On the premise of understanding what level of self was originally, sensing the speed of expansion now, the corners of the mouth twitched and then smiled helplessly. Half an hour later, the storage space finally expanded to over 10,000 cubic meters. After a simple separation and organization, we finally started to get down to business. Nangong Yu used shape-shifting to transfer a large number of items from sealed boxes to the weapon storage in the storage space, and even did not let go of the bullets in the magazine of soldiers passing by. In the magazines that each soldier had with his gun, only one bullet was left, and Nangong Yu was also happy. 40 minutes later, the inventory in the arsenal was almost depleted. Looking at the time, there was basically no need for afternoon classes. Subsequently, he casually created a bunch of almost zero compression-shaped objects and transferred them to the sealed box to take up space. After all the processing is completed, it will be almost an hour. Looking at the time again, there is still half an hour before school ends. Thinking of the afternoon schedule, Nangong Yu couldn't rest well and hurried to school. Before the last class bell rang, Nangong Yu suddenly appeared on the rooftop where she often stayed. He now said he was about to collapse and quickly made a lounge chair, even creating a sofa-like feel. Looking back at the open door, Nangong Yu was too lazy to move and lay down, shaping a hand to control it to lock the door. Then, she closed her eyes and waited for the arrival of the Imperial Sister and Loli. Chapter 9. Assembly on the Rooftop, Packing and Taking Away. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Lying on the soft lounge chair, Nangong Yu closed her eyes and began to ponder how to teach the two great geniuses later. Although he seems quite impressive now, the problem is that he has never taught anyone before. Nangong Yu is supported by a vast amount of information, and as for imagination, he is really unsure whether it is good or bad. After considering for a while, I decided to simply copy 2 copies of the energy extraction information and send them to their minds. He is not sure if their brains can read directly into their souls. After finishing the task, let them refine it themselves first and wait until there are problems before discussing it. In less than 2 minutes, the class bell rang. Nangong Yu opened his 1,000-mile eye to observe the current positions of the 2 students, calculated the first time to arrive, and focused on restoring energy and relieving fatigue. 5 minutes later, a knock on the door woke Nangong Yu up. With his eyes closed, his clone opened Qianli eye and saw that it was indeed this belligerent sword lady. He then manipulated the shapeless hand he had thrown at the door before to open the door. #__. The Poison Island Yazzie opened the door and didn't mind, then looked ahead at the figure. Looking at Nangong Yu ahead, who looked like an old master, his excited mood was like suddenly being poured with a bucket of ice water. Thinking of taking leave for all her club activities and running over to find him, Miss Poison Island felt a surge of excitement. However, upon closer inspection, it was found that Nangong Yu seemed very tired, which made it difficult for him to get angry. He stepped forward and spoke. "What did you do in the afternoon? You shouldn't be so tired after lying on your desk all afternoon, right?" "The first time I saw Nangong reading such a tired Poison Island Yazzie," I joked. "In the afternoon, I went around the arsenal of the self-defense force in this city and took 80% of the individual equipment except for motorcycles and airplanes. The key is to make some styling objects to take up space, it's really not human-made." Hey, as Nangong Yu calmly described something extraordinary, the corners of Poison Island Yazzie's mouth and eyebrows twitched. "Hey. Fake. Do you want to take a look?" Speaking, the space on the side of Poison Island Yazzie fell into the water like a stone, and the circular ripples of the space continued to fluctuate. Then, from the center of the ripple, a machine gun slowly extended from the muzzle until it was slightly extended before stopping, leaving Poison Island Yazzie speechless and helpless. You are walking further and further on the road of a remote mage. I have no choice. I am currently a caster and a part-time archer, so naturally I am very impressive. Well, although being an archer is not yet qualified, after all, melee is very scumbag. What? Ryoko Tokushima is a bit confused. If I remember correctly, isn't archer an archer? When will archers engage in close combat again? Well. Don't worry. Wait a minute, there's another one coming over. Realizing that there seemed to be no Fate series works in this world, Nangong Yu casually waved her hand. After speaking, he sensed less than 10% of the energy in his body, gave a bitter smile, and continued to slowly recover his energy. Meanwhile, retrieve the machine guns in mid-air from the arsenal. Someone else, who is at the Poison Island Yazzie, was also somewhat surprised to hear that Nangong Yu was going to teach more than one person. It's the pink-haired cat from Gaocheng. Let me take a break. I have barely enough energy in my body now, and the consumption in the afternoon is too exhausting. You deserve it. Nangong Yu no longer paid attention to Poison Island Yazzie and waved his hand to get a double sofa for Poison Island Senior, gesturing for her to sit down and wait with him for the arrival of pink-hair Loli. 5 minutes later, Takagi Saya, carrying a backpack, pushed open the door to the rooftop. Looking up at the 2 people with their backs facing each other in front, lying on transparent lounge chairs, as if Nangong Yu was sleeping, and leaning against the sofa, seemingly gazing at the Poison Island Yazzie in the distance. Just like a replica of the previous Poison Island Yazzie, Takagi Saya became very popular. However, being careful, she finally saw the exhaustion of Nangong Yu. With light hands and feet, he walked up to Poison Island Yazzie and greeted her in a low and respectful voice. He sat down next to Poison Island Yazzie and the 2 waited together for Nangong Yu to wake up. Sensing that Gaocheng Shayi was in place, Nangong Yu was not prepared to let the 2 wait for too long. With a high load of mental energy and internal energy circuits, they were able to recover at the fastest speed possible. 10 minutes later, the energy returned to full, and 1 more minute later, the energy circuit cooled down. Nangong Yu also stood up and prepared to take the 2 of them to his small courtyard to officially start practicing. Alright, let's go. Stand closer to me and it will consume less. Poison Island Yazzie was confused, but Takagi Saya was a sensible person. Knowing a little about this guy's displacement methods, he didn't say anything and pulled Poison Island Yazi, who was a bit confused, to stand behind Nangong. Watching two people take their positions, one transforms into a different shape, and the three disappear instantly on the rooftop. However, what the three of them, including Nangong, didn't know was that from the two women standing behind him to the three disappearing together, they were just seen by a boy who was not in a good mood and went to the rooftop to breathe. Hiding by the door, the young man was stunned for a moment, but he sighed and walked to the rooftop, looking into the distance. In the courtyard of the Nangong family, the three suddenly flashed, and the two women who had experienced spatial movement for the first time were stunned again. Seeing the condition of these two behind him, Nangong decided to give some time. Looking at the semi-transparent figure with colorful patterns densely distributed in mid-air, using the spatial perception method of Skyshift and transformation, observing the progress of establishing a different space, secretly calculating the progress, frowning slightly. This progress is less than 10%. If it continues like this, it won't take 5 or 6 days to finish. My goodness, how will we live in the next 5 or 6 days? Nangong secretly went crazy. This weak state is really uncomfortable. At this moment, the stunned two women also noticed the scene in mid-air and exclaimed in surprise. Oh. What is that? Nangong, do you still have ghosts at home? Gaocheng Saya, why does the outline of this body look familiar to you? Ryoko Tokushima, afraid that if difficult problems arise in the future, the two women may make various difficult jokes about themselves. Nangong still explained responsibly. The one in the sky is the true me, of course, in the state of soul. Ontology. Soul. Poison Island Yazi, Takagi Saya, the two women were extremely surprised, but the points of surprise seemed different. That's right, in order to practice a technique, I need to prepare something very important. In fact, the body I am using now is dragging the back legs of the spiritual body. In order to save time, I had to abandon my physical body and personally take action in a spiritual state. What I am currently manipulating is only a spiritual avatar, or an external incarnation, to prevent any potential problems with this body after losing its soul. Plus, I still need to guide both of you. Mainly, the current casting cannot be interrupted. During the casting period, mental energy is greatly consumed and takes at least 6 days. During this period, casting cannot be interrupted. So, it is necessary to assign a clone as the terminal to handle other matters. Please forgive me, both of you. Let me understand. After speaking, the two women who calmed down had different expressions. Terminal, no wonder. I think your thread is much smaller. That's easy to say. I will give you good guidance on swordsmanship in the next few days. However, now you can also be considered as the essence, right? Poison Island Yazi stared at Nangong with a malicious expression on his face, making his back cool. However, Gao Qingsha's eyes lit up, and he pulled Nangong over his forehead, who was sweating profusely. Oh. The art of clone, please make sure to teach me this. So miss, I can have my clone come to school every day, and then I'll just hide at home and watch dramas. Looking at such a pink-haired Shay, looking at the spiritual body in mid-air, Nangong sighed with a head and two big eyes. I just hope to finish the alien space soon, and then he can relieve his current weak state. Look at the time, it happens to be 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Damn it. Are you pulling these two to come home for club activities? Supernatural Research Society. Thinking of Nangong, who should be doing the right thing, slowly pulled his hand out of Funmao's arms. Adjust your position and face the malevolent purple Nagamasa and the wandering pink Momoro who dreams of a better future. Coughing twice brought these restless students back to their senses.